Let us introduce ourselves again formally and then see that where we can move forward, how we can take it to the next level. So I'm primarily working in health system and health policy and how the technology could be an important interface to strengthen the overall public health space, especially in the government sector and possibly in some of the private sector. We have been piloting a several technology intervention on various aspects like information flow, non-communicable diseases, some of communicable diseases, how especially the comorbidity survey, how to capture the data automatically. Many aspects we keep on doing an experiment and then engage the government directly for the benefit of public, so that the government uh, is very closely observing various technology and then they take up whichever they think more suitable to scale it up. To you, yeah, please give your brief introduction, and then I wish that if the entire presentation is centered around what is the core problem, what is the
Yeah,
core solution that you brought in, what is the
yeah.
value addition that you brought in.
Answer. So my name is Shaunak. I head sales and marketing at Inaxel, and Megha is here, my colleague. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you're Megha. So I'll just give a short background about our company. So we're a Bangalore-based company. We're now 9 years old. We're initially an incubator,
Okay.
but kind of pivoted a couple years ago. What we are trying to do is develop medical technology which is designed for the realities of the Indian market in mind, right? Because fundamentally 80% of the devices in this country are imported. The ones which are manufactured locally are typically the kind of low value, disposables or consumables. But anything which is imported is not designed necessarily for the realities of our system, whether it is in terms of affordability or the skill requirement or the infrastructure requirements. So what we are trying to do is develop for our realities, right? And we follow the Stanford biodesign process to identify these unmet needs, validate them, and all of that. So we have launched, our products in 2019. There are 3 products. So we're in critical care and maternal and child health. And we had launched our products in 2019, just before COVID. That itself was its own set of challenges. But we've kind of continued kind of chugging along and trying to get these products out there and adopted. So let me just share the presentation of the product itself, and then we can take it from there. So you're muted.
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
see. Can
Okay.
you put it in a slide mode so that we can see full in a full screen?
Yeah. Let me just do that. Okay. Is that fine?
Yeah, perfect. I can
Okay,
see.
perfect. So basically, the product we have is called SaaS. SaaS is a portable, low-scale, infrastructure-independent neonatal CPAP system. And the idea here is really to address respiratory distress among premature babies, which is one of the major causes of, or a pretty significant cause of neonatal mortality in India. And I'll kind of just go through the gap. So basically today, what happens is we have, in the government system, maybe 35,000 facilities where births and deliveries happen. But maybe there are, 1,500 to 2,000 centers which have neonatal ICU facilities, which have CPAP systems, right? So with in premature births where, the lungs are not fully developed, these babies have a very high risk for respiratory distress. And if they don't get access to breathing support adequately and quickly, then it leads to mortality and morbidity. So today what happens is that the clinical intervention of bubble CPAP, which is kind of a standard one, is only available in the neonatal ICUs, like I said. So at lower level centers or in transport, something like bag and mask ventilation or oxygen therapy is used. And these are not, clinically the ideal kind of respiratory support options. So there is this big gap in terms of access to CPAP therapy. And that is exactly what we're trying to resolve with SaaS, right? So SaaS, basically, it has a few key features and benefits. One is that it is fully infrastructure independent. So bubble CPAPs today require compressed air lines, compressed oxygen, 24/7 electricity. Um, they require, of course, trained staff to use it, and they can only be used in stationary situations, which is why the use is limited to the hospital setting and the NICU setting. Now, SaaS kind of removes a lot of these limitations to allow for use in any setting. So hospitals of all levels and in transport. So it has firstly an inbuilt compressor. So therefore you don't require an external compressed air line. It has inbuilt air oxygen blending, and it is compatible with a range of oxygen sources. So if there is a central oxygen line, that will work. Otherwise cylinders will work. We've even tested it now with oxygen concentrators. It has a built-in battery backup. This device, the one I've shown, has a manual mode where if electricity is not available, if your battery is drained, you have a manual powering option where you basically pump up that kind of orange balloon you see, you pump it up with an external ambu bag, and then the device will still provide the same kind of CPAP output. And then it's compatible with a whole range of interfaces, humidifiers, and all of that. So the idea is that we've removed a lot of the dependence on infrastructure, because as you can see with this device, you can use it in any setting. It easily integrates into whatever's available at that hospital, be it interfaces, humidifiers, electricity sources, oxygen sources, and then of course the portability and transport compatibility. And with these things, SaaS can provide breathing support in a range of scenarios which today babies do not get respiratory support in, right? So of course, like a bubble CPAP, it can be used for long-term CPAP therapy in a NICU or an SNCU, but it can also be used in the labor room to give immediate stabilization and CPAP. It can be used from intra-hospital transport, so from the labor room to the NICU, and finally an inter-hospital transport as well. So again, the major gap, which is access to CPAP therapy, is resolved with this product, and babies in any situation, any hospital type, any transport type, they can get access to CPAP therapy, right? So just one clarification here. If an oxygen source, for example, is not available, the device will provide atmospheric air at an elevated pressure. So at least some level of support is provided. And that is kind of what we're trying to do, at least some level of support superior to what is given today.
So you mean to say, in a nutshell, the compressor is built in. There is no
Yes.
need of external compressor. The electricity, it is not dependent on the external electrical connections. It can work up to 4 to 5 hours with a battery backup, which is built into it. Right? And it's portable. That's
Yes.
another key feature. So it's user friendly. Yeah, good so far.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead.
So we've done 2 studies so far. We have a couple more ongoing. So MVJ Hospital, which is in Hoskote outside Bangalore, they've used, the first study was done on 200 patients, 149 in hospital, 56 in transport, 100% survival, and a CPAP therapy success rate of 96%. The other study we did was a 2-arm study where we compared SaaS to oxygen therapy for intra-hospital transport. And the results were, very, very strong for SaaS. So basically, we had about 64 patients in each arm. If you just look at the last line there, in the control group, out of the 64, 42 babies needed to be put on mechanical ventilation because they had deteriorated. And in that hospital, it takes anywhere from 15 to 40 minutes for that transport. So they deteriorated significantly and required mechanical ventilation. In the SaaS group, it was only 15. So a massive difference. We've have a patent granted for this device. It's granted in India and it's under prosecution in some other geographies. The company is EN ISO 13485 certified. The product is CDSCO registered, and we've just started CE certification process. This was meant to start a while ago. It got delayed because our notifying body was on hold because of this switch from this MDD to MDR. So the CE rules have switched. So they were not taking any new, I think after April or May, they didn't take on any new submissions. So as soon as they're open, we're going to start that process as well. Compare, I mean, there are two main technologies on which you would compare SaaS, right? One is against a traditional bubble CPAP system, where really the SaaS advantages are in the multiple powering modes, in the ability to use in both transportation and stationary. So those are two kind of main benefits there. Against, so TPs resuscitators are the other kind of stopgap solution which are used. So, you know, of course, they use for resuscitation, but a lot of times even for intra-hospital transport, sometimes TPs are used. The clinical limitation here is that the TPs, you can only provide 100% oxygen, which is poisonous to a baby. Now, of course, in India, because it is the best of the options available, it is used. But, you know, ideally, for intra-hospital transport, you want to give some sort of air oxygen blend and not 100% oxygen. And that's, of course, where SaaS would come in, right? So SaaS is portable like a TP resuscitator is, but it provides the blending as well as all those powering options and all that to drive the blending. So those would be the main kind of differences from a competitive standpoint. So we launched, like I said, in 2019, late 2019. Frankly, when COVID hit, we, you know, a lot of our activities went on hold because there was just that much kind of uncertainty in the market. People were not really looking to invest in all that. We've sold 90 units so far across 15 centers in 7 states. And key references would be MVJ Medical College, where our studies were done, and then SPS Ludhiana. Dr. Pradeep is one of our centers. We've also deployed 8 units in Ethiopia. This is a World Bank funded pilot. So it's one of the top hospitals in Ethiopia called Hallelujah General, and we've deployed 8 units there. So just last week, our team was there to do the initial installation training and all of that. So we'll have this moving as well. So one thing is that the product which I've showed you is kind of the old version we have. And if you see, it's a mechanical, it's a manual option, a manual kind of device. And that was, you know, part of the design because we wanted to make it, you know, usable in any sort of scenario and any sort of setting. But we're also working on a certain, like an upgraded version, because we've got certain feedback from the market. One being that, you know, ideally, if the device could be smaller, it would be better, for example. A lot of the size from the old device came from the manual powering mode. But many people have said, look, between electricity and battery, it's more or less the powering is managed. We don't really need the manual option. So can you remove that and reduce the size, etc. Also, some people wanted the digital control parameters and all that, saying that, you know, that they'd be more kind of confident with digital controls and displays. So we're kind of building that in. So what you see here is the kind of prototype that we have, and we're kind of in the design for manufacturing stage and all that, and we should be launching this product in about 3-4 months time.
So what is the
so this would be
what is the key difference in terms of the weight when you transform
so
from
the
protein?
weight. So the thing is, the old version too, while it looks big, the weight is 4.5 kgs.
Okay.
So it's not very heavy. The smaller one, though, the form factor is much smaller. So size-wise, it will be like about 1/3 of the size. So it will be just that much easier to carry. Weight will be around, I think 3.5 kg is probably what it will come to. So yeah, that would be the difference. But there
And
also be more
predominantly it's
kind
a
of
digital.
intelligence.
It's predominantly digital. I mean, like,
Yes, sir. So
operation.
in this, we've incorporated sensors, digital controls, and all that. So with the old version, it's a bit more of a high-end version essentially. So depending on the kind of requirement and what is best suited for that specific setting, you know, we would have both options available. So the digital version, especially for NICU, for example, is a much more relevant solution. So, you know, what we've been trying to do, and I think this is where this conversation with you, it was very kind of useful for us. You know, we have the product, like we said, we've sold a number of units, they're being used across. But what we would want to move towards is doing a large kind of pilot where we can really demonstrate the impact of a broad deployment of this technology. Because in 1122 units, you don't really get that sense, right? I mean, what we're trying to say is that we're providing access to CPAP therapy in all these settings. So, what we're trying to do is how do we figure out how do we demonstrate this at a broader level so that from a public health standpoint, we can really demonstrate the impact. And then once you have that results, we can go to state governments and show, that this is what this can do. Because if you just look at, infant mortality and, asphyxia and prematurity are a pretty significant source of a cause of neonatal mortality. So, at least 20% odd case of neonatal mortality could be in theory addressed with access to CPAP through this device SARS. And that's kind of what we want to get to. So, so coming to, again, like I said, the challenges, what are the challenges we face? One is, of course, this validation in a public health setting. So really what we're looking to do is, some sort of maybe a district level pilot where we demonstrate the public health impact of a broader deployment. So the goal would be, let's say we can deploy 20, 30 units across, say, a district hospital and 4 to 6 referral hospitals, whether they're SNCUs or even the one level lower, and do that over a 6-month period, to then follow up with the impact assessment and tracking of the outcomes and all of that, with the goal that after 6 months we have the data that shows if you take this device, you deploy it in all these types of centers in this sort of way, then these are the kind of health outcomes that you could look to generate, and then this basically would become a powerful case study that we could so that is kind of where I thought PHFI could play a role, but I'm open to any thoughts, ideas you have as well. I mean, you may have some better other ideas of how to do this and what we're trying to do. Just a quick thing on our team, and this is some of the kind of awards and presentations we've done on SaaS. We've got quite a bit of recognition for it. One thing, impact is another. So we're really trying to figure out how do we now get this technology out there and into the hands of people who really, need it.
That's wonderful. I think you have clearly explained the core problem and then the solution that the startup can come through, especially to reduce the infant mortality rate, especially because of asphyxia, or it could be in need of ventilator, but it is not required a very sophisticated environment. But in such locations also we can use this. Having said that, in any public health policy to be very successful, we look at a few different parameters. Number one is there any adequate scientific evidence, or has it been adequately validated? That's number one point. Number two point is like the financial feasibility. What do I mean by financial feasibility? Is cost effectiveness, how much it costs and what are the costs that are involved for the devices to buy it, and what is the existing price for the other devices, and can we compare and what is the difference that could come through. That's the third thing, is that the the acceptability of the medical fraternity from the current practice to the new device practice. So in other words, it's a culture. Technology is there and it is working and it is being validated, possibly many of the technologies, but then the changing the culture does require a push and pull technique. But that is a third level, and the fourth is like the political viability, I would call it as. What is political viability? In the sense, the decision makers at a top level, whether it's a secretary or a minister, they would own it only if they see a large scale value that they can win, especially in the media presentation that we are bringing non-invasive XYZ devices, which we study. And the finally, operational stability. What do I mean by operational stability? Any device we deploy, how robust and what is the quality, how long will it last, and what is the sort of a repair or a replacement, or how is the calibration being done, and how often it is being done. So those sort of activity. So put together all these five parameters, I would say that you are very close because you have already validated, and it does require to be done in a larger scale. And that we will I'll come to that point. And next point which I discussed about is the financial feasibility, cost effectiveness. Have you done any sort of a comparison between the one device which you have and the devices which are being already in use in the hospital in terms of the cost
Yeah. So
and
generally,
their kind of a repetitive repairs and calibration, how they do that for that device, how you are going to do, how you have a better edge compared to that.
yeah.
Those
So
that
I can address that if you want right now, or if you want me to wait, I can.
Yeah, yeah, please go ahead,
Yeah.
tell.
So basically, so yeah. So we've compared the pricing against both the I mean the double CPAPs, which are the standard of care right now,
Mhm.
and against say the FNP, which is like the gold standard. We are 30 to 50% cheaper, depending on their configuration and all that. And I would say compared to the local made bubble CPAPs, because there are a few, uh, the proper systems which have everything, we would be around the same price or about between 0 and 20% cheaper, depending on brand to brand. But
Mhm.
essentially, from an affordability standpoint, we are definitely at the lowest end of the bubble CPAP segment. And yeah, so that I'm not compared to a T-piece resuscitator, which is like the other maybe other side of it. It is more expensive, but that again, that's only a resuscitation device as opposed to a CPAP system. So, but compared to the CPAPs, like I said, we are the absolute bottom end of the range from a pricing standpoint.
Okay.
Also in terms of running cost, because what we have done is ensure that the device can be used with any interface. We don't have custom interfaces.
Mhm.
So again, with like the market leaders, you have custom interfaces which are very expensive. We've ensured that it can be used with any standard interface. So the running cost is also minimal because these are kind of off the shelf items which we can also supply if required. And again, the doesn't require uh, calibration. I mean, there's a annual preventative maintenance which we would do, but it doesn't require any sort of more frequent calibration or anything like that. Because we've also designed it for serviceability. The idea being that if it's deployed in far-flung remote areas, a person with minimal skill should be able to take care of it if required, or it should be easy enough to do any sort of replacement at the site itself. So we've designed it for that in mind.
Wonderful. I'm excited. Any technology which is really going to benefit the public and which is being validated preliminary but an advanced stage. And we keep on doing on various technology promotion depending on the need of the public health space. So this seems to rightly fit into that all the criteria.